Hey guys, it's Carl here from GuitarLessons365.com, and I don't really do videos like this very often. You know, if I make a mistake in a video, which is obviously inevitable, you get 2,000 song lesson tutorials. There's going to be little bits and pieces here or there that I might not have completely correct, or I forgot something or whatever. And if I went back and replaced all those videos, it would just, you know, it's not really worth it to me. But anyway, most people understand that. Some people just, especially for this video, the Rise video, I'm getting a lot of people asking a lot of questions. Some of them are straight trolls, so I just ignore those, it's no big deal. But some of them just have legitimate questions about, are you sure this is, some people are like, this is not played anywhere like this, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I wanted to kind of answer these questions about what's going on in this solo, what I did get wrong, but what I got right as well, now that we have video evidence. Now, before we had video evidence, people were saying the whole thing's alternate picked. Why? Because it sounds picked, because it's heavily palm muted and it's very percussive, and in the video he's doing all sorts of extra going all over the neck, and you know, that's not what's going on in the actual solo. So I did a video without being able to see him perform it exactly live, all right? Now, after the live videos have come out now, so there's a couple of them that I referenced, one from that cruise that he did, like the first ever performance, and another one like recently in like Brazil. Kind of reference those to get really good shots of his picking hand, so you can see what's going on here. And I can't use those videos, and there's fan videos. I don't own the content, so but I will tell you what I'm seeing there, knowing Nuno's style and knowing what guitar players look like when they're picking, what I feel is exactly what he's doing here, which is very similar to what I did in the video, but with some slight tiny variation in two parts. All right, so that's what now also there's some confusion live, because if you're trying to follow on my video and then follow him live playing it, live he's tuned down a half step so the studio recording is in regular drop D, live they're at drop C sharp. So there's going to be that discrepancy as well too. That's something that most bands do. They tune down live just to help with vocals and stuff like that. Now, let's get into why I taught the lesson the way I did. Now, this is a very well-known technique. If you followed Nuno's playing, which I have for over 30 years, he's got a very specific rhythmic effect that he does. And probably the best example of it is the Peacemaker Die solo, which is a killer solo. It's on the 3 Sides to Every Story album. And Nuno is basically picking an open string and then hammering on the next two. So now those hammers can happen on the same string that he picked. They can happen across strings. They can happen, he can pick a string and then hammer on, like say pick the open B and then hammer on G and then hammer on D. So that's across 3 strings, and it sounds like they're picked, but they're not. But the note that's always picked is an open string. And then the hammers can happen anywhere you want, all right? So that's basically the technique that he's doing extremely effectively. He's amazing at it, and he does it in the Peacemaker Die solo, so check that out. Now, he played that a little bit on Rick Beato's interview that he did. And then he says that the Rise solo is a little different, the Rise pattern. It's a little different, but it's extremely similar. It's the same pattern dominates that second half of the Rise solo. By the way, the first half of the Rise solo is killer too, and I think it's actually harder to play than the second half, and it gets no love. Everybody talks about the muted part, but I've heard Nuno do that for decades. The beginning of it is my favorite part of it, but anyway, it's kind of hard to miss with anything that Nuno does. But anyway, so first things first, you see that Nuno is doing some upstrokes. Now, he likes to start this pattern, this 3-note pattern, with an upstroke and then do the hammers. Peacemaker Die solo, he does it the whole time. Upstroke, hammer, hammer, upstroke, hammer, hammer, pretty much the whole time. Now, you see me play it in the video, and I'm doing downstrokes. Why is that? Nuno is a downward pick slanter. So when he picks on the guitar, you can see that his hand is weighted kind of towards the pinky side like this. All right, so what that means, it makes his pick angled slightly downward, so the top of it's angled downward. By the way, anything I talk about pick slanting and the angle and escape strokes, check out Troy Grady's channel. He's pretty much patented all these terms, I'm sure. So he can show you what's going on. But anyway, Nuno's a downward pick slanter. So when he picks an upstroke, that means his pick escapes the strings very easily. It comes out over the strings instead of a downstroke, which makes his pick go down into the strings and he's stuck. All right, so that's why he's starting that phrase with an upstroke each time, because it's more comfortable to him. Now, it doesn't really matter rhythmically because that upstroke is happening on different parts of the beat. So in this rise solo, it's a 16th note phrase with a 3-note pattern that's consistently going. So that means that first note of the pattern is always picked. So that means that since it's an odd number of notes over the course of an even feel, it's going to also kind of create that kind of ambiguity, but it means that that pick note's going to be happening on different parts of the beat, all right? He's doing it because it's more comfortable. Now, there is a couple of parts in the rise solo where he actually does the first note as a downstroke, usually for the very beginning of the phrase, and then because he adds a little alternate pick burst, which is the thing that I missed. So I'll talk about those in a second. Now, I do downstrokes because I'm an upward pick slanter. All right, that means I like to kind of anchor my hand more on this side of the hand, which means my downstrokes are what escape the strings. So that's why you see a discrepancy. I like to use downstrokes for the open strings. He likes to use up. He'll actually use a little bit of both, but he usually mostly uses up. And it's because of how we both kind of hold pick. Anyway, so there's that discrepancy. Now, when we get to the actual part itself, the left hand's completely the same. So all those notes are completely identical to what I taught in the lesson. That was correct, all right? And you can see that very easily in the video. Now, when it comes to the picking, that's where there's two tiny parts of it that I did not pick. I continued to pattern the same way, just like he's always done in his career, but he added a little bit of variation to it on just 2 of the strings. So let me explain to you what is going on here. So there's basically 4 notes that are picked. Out of the whole 32-note phrase, there's 4 notes that are picked that I did not pick. So let me explain what's going on here. Now, this is exactly, if you slow it down and you know what to look for, if it looks like if somebody's hitting the strings or if somebody's not hitting the strings, and you can see his wrist moving more wildly when he's doing straight alternate picking, you can see very easily what's going on here. So anyway, let's start with the beginning of the pattern. He does just like me, where we're going to pick an open string with a downstroke and hammer on. Now, by the way, I will say the pattern is completely the same that I taught as well too. We're just talking about which notes are going to be hammered and which are going to be picked. So if you've already followed this in my video, you're very, very close to it already, all right? There's just a couple of notes you got to pick, and that's it. So for the most part, it's going to be the same pattern in the exact same way. So we're going to start with the same way I started it. Hit the open E, hammer 7, and hammer 12. Now, he switches to an upstroke now. This is how he prefers to play this pattern. Upstroke on the A. So it's always the open strings will be picked. And then he's going to hammer on that 7 on the A, and then that 12 back on the E again. So, all right, so it's just like I did in the video, except he's using an upstroke on the A and I'm using the downstroke. Here is where he added a slight variation. So the third time of playing the pattern, those 3 notes, he does a quick alternate pick burst. He does this, all the notes are on 1 string now, so the alternate picking is a lot easier. So he goes up, down, up, and then he starts the next phrase over. Since he just ended with an upstroke, this is one of those things when he wants to start that little pick hammer hammer, it's got to start with a downstroke because of he just did an up, down, up kind of thing for those 3 notes. So we have this. Up, down, up, down. Now that down starts the next pattern and he repeats that as notes on the A string again. So he basically plays the notes on the A string twice, that 0, 7, 12 twice. The first time he picks them, and the second time is the same pick, hammer, hammer. All right, so we have this. All right. So that second one was started with the downstroke. Then he goes back into his normal pattern, which is now he's going to pick the D string, open, hammer on 7, 12 on the A, and then pick an upstroke on the D again, hammer on 7 on the A, 7 on the D, I'm sorry, and 12 on the A. So we had the, so we have this so far. We have Now, when we get to the D string where all the notes are on the D string, that's when he alternate picks again. And he does that same little alternate pick burst they did on the A. He does it on the D. Okay, so it's going to be up, down, up. So 0, 7, 12 all on the D. And then you're going to start the next 3-note phrase over with the downstroke again, since you have to. And then it's the same kind of pick, hammer, hammer the whole rest of the way. So that first one obviously having to be so it's just basically what he does is he picks that after down, up, down, hammer, then up. And then it kind of goes all the way down across, just the same way that I taught it in the video. So it's mostly the pattern that I did. You basically, all you need to do is take when you do those patterns, like I said, it doesn't really matter whether you start with or downs or ups. It actually locks in pretty well playing it like he plays it. When you start the alternate pick burst with the upstroke, so it's an up, down, it works especially well on the A. When he gets to the D string, it doesn't work. It's a little bit more awkward, and you can see that in his picking because he does a little adjustment with his thumb. So you can see that he can tell the awkwardness is there too. But he wanted that note to sound like he wanted it to build up, and on the way down, it's just nothing but that pick, hammer, hammer stuff. So it's basically the same thing that we did before. The first time you get to the A string, you're going to go up, down, and the first time you get to the D string where all the notes on the string, meaning you do the same thing. That's thrown in there. Everything else is the same. It's that same pattern that we did before. Now, I will say that when you watch him play it live, he leaves out the very last upstroke. When he's resetting the pattern, you don't hear that last open string. You'll see him just kind of do a couple of upstrokes on the whole pattern, the ascending version of the pattern. He does a couple of upstrokes, and that last one he just kind of leaves out as he resets for the next one. But it is on the actual recording. You can hear that open string being played, and everything sounds very consistent there. So I think whether he probably does this because he's been playing this thing for I think he recorded this thing in 2020, so maybe he wanted that kind of wave effect. So he wanted to really build up the intensity as it goes up. So you can see how it starts off with the more hammer stuff, and then it works into the picking it way up, and then it relaxes on the way back down. And by the time he gets to the very bottom, he's not picking at all. And that's how he's doing it live. Now I think in the recording he continues that same pick, hammer, hammer, but on the way down, and keep it pretty consistent there. But it's basically that. Do it like I did in that video. You can use upstrokes for the first note on each string, which is more conducive to how he plays it. But the actual notes themselves, the first note of the 3 are the only ones that are picked, except for the first time you play 3 notes in a row on the A string. And you go back, so it's a up, down, up, and then you're gonna use a downstroke to start the next pattern, which is just gonna be pick, hammer, hammer. And then the same thing the first time you have all the notes on the D string. And then everything is the same. So hopefully this will kind of solve the issue for people. So just so you know, if you had any issues kind of following along with this, I'll create a tab for this of the whole section there that has the exact picking, what's picked and what's hammered. Obviously everything is heavily palm muted and you try to keep it as even as possible. But that is the difference. There's 4 notes are picked instead of that are in there that I missed out of the 32. Same notes, those picked. Impossible to really figure out unless you're watching him do it because of the heavy muting. But most of the pattern is not done like that. Most of the pattern is still pick, hammer, hammer. And the video evidence shows. Now, if you watch the video and you cannot tell this is happening, it's not, nothing I can really help you with there, but it's not being alternate picked, all right? So now, things are so fast, it's such a fast part that just doing 3 upstrokes in a row across the sequence, you're still picking multiple notes per second, just with all upstrokes. That's how fast it is. So it might look like he's returning to the string very quick with a downstroke, but he's not, he's missing it. He's doing mostly upstrokes. All right. I hope this works out. If you guys aren't convinced, there's nothing else I can do, and I can't really help you. But for the people who actually understand Nuno's style, who have watched Nuno do this, and actually have eyeballs so they can watch the video and actually know what's going on. I think this is going to be pretty much what he's doing, and I can't imagine it being anything else. All right, I hope you guys enjoy this. Again, see you again soon for GuitarLessons365.com.